Hello everyone, so now that the Jurassic Fart project is all done, it's time for some more dinosaur fun. To be more precise, we're going to build a sauropod, or Argentinosaurus, or the Argentinosaurus from Primal, the zombie sauropod.
Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well, and thank you for tuning into Moose Motion. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, and be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new content. Anyway, thank you for your support, it's highly appreciated.
So during this project, obviously we're going to be building an Argentinosaurus. However, the commentary will be the normal for this channel, I suppose, covering some fun facts about dinosaurs. Now, doing some homework, unfortunately, about Argentinosaurus, well, I kind of discovered there really wasn't a whole lot on them. So to begin this basically small series on how to make a sauropod, I'm going to basically cover sauropods as a whole. Now, don't worry, there's going to be some facts about Argentinosaurus himself in there, obviously, given that fact that he's a fairly popular sauropod, so I've learned, and well, it's not going to be entirely focused on that, but yeah, just given the fact that there isn't really a whole lot to go off their remains, we can't really unfortunately give a whole episode, especially one this long, just dedicated to Argentinosaurus. The next one will probably be more, perhaps focused on that dinosaur, but I can only imagine that part of the commentary will be focused on it. Now, that seems to be an unfortunate reoccurring theme with a lot of the dinosaur projects on this channel. There just seems to be a lack of, well, either facts or fossil remains on the dinosaurs that I'm making, because they seem to be fairly niche, although the Argentinosaurus arguably is probably one of the more popular sauropods in the world, given the fact that it generally kind of seems to be holding the title of the largest dinosaur that ever walked the earth, so that's a fairly impressive title to behold, considering, well, dinosaurs are renowned for their size, and the sauropod classes definitely, well, had that one down for sure. Now, any of you who are curious about making your own little sauropod armature doll, there's plenty of text for you to follow along, obviously, so be sure to follow those so you can make your own little stop-motion dinosaur projects. At any rate, it's time to nerd out about some sauropods, or the largest land animals of all time. They existed for millions of years, coming across the most deadly animals that nature has ever produced, aka the theropods, like Tyrannosaurus rex, Giganotosaurus, Allosaurus, you get it, the big scary predators. But they survived, and well, were very successful animals to say the very least. The first sauropods appeared in the early Jurassic. Animals such as Posanosaurus and Tatita nitris were originally thought to be Triassic sauropods, but this was found to be incorrect. Now, just a quick recap on dinosaur timelines, just in case you're not quite as, well, subconscious about dinosaur timelines as my nerdy self here. Basically, the order in which the timelines come in is Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. And just for a fun Jurassic Park fact here, technically most of the dinosaurs you see in Jurassic Park are from the Cretaceous. Basically, I believe 2 of the dinosaurs in that entire movie, at least the original 93 one, are actually from the Jurassic, including your Brachiosaurus and your Dilophosaurus, but that's it. Everything else is from the Cretaceous. Now back to sauropods. They became quickly widespread throughout the planet. By the late Jurassic, famous animals like Diplodocus and Brachiosaurus prowled the Earth. By the late Cretaceous, Titanosaurs took over. Their distribution was near global up until the non-avian dinosaur extinction. Sauropods were herbivorous animals, and had long necks so they could basically eat any foliage that they wanted to. When I was growing up, I commonly referred to these dinosaurs as long necks. But as it turns out, that was apparently possibly a adaptation for, well, obtaining their rather large size, and I'll get to that right away here. The theory being, basically, the larger you get, the more energy it takes to actually move around. So basically, the idea behind having a longer neck means you can basically stand in one place, moving your neck around, eating as much as you can within that general vicinity, therefore saving as much energy as possible, growing as much as you can. They were all quadrupeds and had relatively small heads. Now, fun fact about their preservation, unfortunately, generally speaking, the skull is the one thing that's almost always missing on these sauropods. Their bodies were rather massive and had fairly long tails to boot. And their legs were long, straight, and rather powerful. Obviously had to be in order to hold all that weight up. One of the most defining characteristics of this group was their overall size. The largest sauropods were even larger than nearly any other animal on Earth besides massive whales. Their body structure did not vary much between genera, but the one difference that could be found was overall length. Some sauropods, like Diplodocus, had extremely long tails. So long, in fact, that some scientists think that they could have used their tails like whips. Supersaurus at 34 meters or 112 feet is the longest known sauropod from reasonably complete remains. Argentinosaurus is longer at 36 meters or 118 feet, but the fossil material was less complete. It's thought it could have gotten much longer, though. Marapunosaurus may have been 58 meters long or 190 feet long. If true, its vertebral column would have been much longer than a blue whale. To put these animals' length in perspective, the longest living terrestrial animal today is the reticulated python at 6.95 meters or 22.8 feet. On a personal side note, I generally love animals. I kind of have a small petting zoo at home here. And, well, the thoughts of a 22-foot long snake just has nope written all over it. Just no. No, 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 no. However, I mean, sauropods obviously dwarf this thing, but a sauropod's probably not nearly as entitled to swallow me whole after crushing me. So, yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of pythons. They scare me a little bit. Speaking of pythons, though, there was technically one in the prehistoric times that was much larger than any of the ones that got to today's standards and ate dinosaurs, but that's a discussion for another time. Some sauropods were extremely tall. Brachiosaurs had very tall shoulders and extremely long necks. Sauroposeidon was probably the tallest of all at 18 meters or 60 feet tall. By comparison, the tallest giraffes are 5.5 meters or 18 feet tall. Of course, with great length comes with great weight. The most complete evidence tells us sauropods could weigh up to 80 metric tons or possibly more. Argentinosaurus was among the most massive of all the sauropods. Some estimations put it at 99 tons, but these may be overestimations. A quick Google search tells me 50,000 to 100,000 kilograms, so either way, this thing is definitely not on the light side. There is poor evidence. Bryathocatosaurus may have weighed up to 75 metric tons, but this has been heavily criticized. The weight of Marapunosaurus was estimated to be 122 metric tons, but critics claim these estimations were widely exaggerated. It also should be noted that these estimations are very hard for sauropods because, well, a lot of the time there isn't a lot of fossil evidence to, well, base these weight estimations off of, unfortunately. For example, Argentinosaurus is a well-known one, but it doesn't really have a whole lot of fossil evidence backing a lot of these weight claims up either, given the fact that basically the remains that we have are only about 3.5% complete. It would appear what we do have essentially is part of the spinal column, some of the rear legs, and a bit of the hips. Now, given the fact that we do have the rear legs of this thing, you probably can get a little bit better weight estimation, but it would be obviously more accurate to have probably all four. That being said, the complete preservation of these sauropods is extremely rare, unfortunately, which, I mean, kind of seems surprising at the beginning, but if you really think about it, it's hard to become a fossil as is. Now, you're talking about an animal that potentially weighs hundreds of tons. Now, the amount of sediment and preservation that it's going to take to, well, fossilize this animal is, well, immense, to say the very least. So it's going to be hard to say whether we're going to ever actually have some very complete Argentinosaurus or various other sauropod skeletons at some point. One can only hope. From current evidence, it's not too unreasonable to believe that some of these sauropods could have gotten up to 100 metric tons. Kinda crazy to think about how heavy that actually is. The largest blue whales get up to 190 metric tons, and some only get to about 50 metric tons. And seeing how we're on the topic of, well, aquatic animals, when scientists first discovered sauropods, they assumed that these animals had to be semi-aquatic due to their large size. And you can see lots of old paleo art representing a lot of, well, these sauropods hanging out in swamps, essentially because it was thought that they were too heavy to basically walk on land. And I vaguely remember actually seeing perhaps a few of these books as a child, to be honest. At least with that common complexion of the sauropod in the swamp at the very least. Now, obviously, with modern day research debunking this, well, very awkward thing for the sauropods to be doing in the first place, not that they obviously couldn't swim or hang out in the water, but it's been apparently proven that if they were fully submerged in water for probably a period of time, their lungs would likely collapse. Then this image of sauropods hanging out in the water regularly was even further debunked with the discovery of air sacs in their skeletons. Now, obviously, they would have probably floated away at this point, although part of me loves the image of a sauropod trying to hang out in the water for an extended period of time and just floating away. Yeah, that would be hilarious. Maybe I should animate that. I could just see it as he floats off in the distance. The scientist told me I was supposed to be here. Anyway, that's a future stop motion project. All jokes aside, sauropods were more than likely capable of swimming, but were not well adapted to, locomotion in the water, obviously. And one crazy thing to think about, these things were probably more than capable of crossing rivers without even getting their torsos wet, so why bother swimming? Sauropods have a system of air sacs running through their vertebrae, and more precisely their necks, to help reduce weight. And they also had hollow bones, which has led some paleontologists to mistaken them for pterosaurs, apparently. A sauropod's main defense was its overall size. Once fully grown, I would imagine that their size alone would have been more than enough to deter most predators. Although, that being said, I'm sure there would have been more than likely their fair share of, encounters, even at full size, because there were some pretty big theropods back then, and there's been, some fossil evidence of these things being munched on, so yeah. Their young were definitely susceptible to predation, though, that's for sure, because obviously you have, some time to grow, and it's unclear as to whether or not sauropods did provide parental care, because from what I've seen in most documentaries, the common, image for these things is they lay a large amount of eggs and just kind of hope for the best and survival of the fittest. However, that all being said, we can only speculate because, these animals have been, dead for millions of years, and we can only take rough estimations as to what their life was actually like, unfortunately. Which is, probably part of the reason we find them so fascinating. Or at least part of the reason I personally find them fascinating, because, there are so many stories, and some of them we'll just unfortunately never really know. Any rate, what do you find fascinating about dinosaurs? Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you find, most interesting about these prehistoric animals. Anyway, it's time for the build rundown. So this skeleton was far more detailed than most of my usual stop-motion projects when it comes to making the skeletons, which is why I'm a little behind schedule, and I do apologize, but that's unfortunately kind of the normal, because I have a bad habit of biting off more than I can chew, and that definitely happened, because of this sauropod-sized project. I was originally just going to do a, normal Argentinosaurus, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I came across Primal recently and was heavily influenced by their zombie Argentinosaurus, or the Argentinosaurus infected by the Plague of Madness, as it's referred to. And I just thought that looked way too cool, so I had to make a claymation version of this because, the skin melting off, especially with all the boiling effect that claymation can have, this will definitely be a fun animation project for the future. Now, with zombie-like characters, unfortunately, that means you basically got to do an entire skeleton because it's probably going to be visible more than one occasion. So that generally means your sculpture is going to take a little bit more time than usual, especially for that first part. Anyway, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.